The heater in my car gave out about 20 minutes before I pulled into my apartment lot. I sat there a minute longer, the engine rattling under the weight of an early Midwest blizzard, and let the static between the Christmas songs wash over me. Silent Night played like a cruel joke. I had just gotten off a 12-hour shift at the hospital. We were understaffed. Again. I hadn't expected anyone to text. And they didn't. Not even Mom. Not even a group message from my siblings about Christmas dinner plans. The streets were dusted in white, soft as lies, the kind people tell themselves so they can sleep at night. I walked into my apartment, lights off, tossed my keys on the counter. My shoes left melted footprints behind me, but I didn't take them off. Just stood there in the dark kitchen. Another Christmas, another no invite. I didn't cry. I was too old for that. You reach a point where you stop being surprised by the silence. It becomes expected. It becomes survival. At 10:43 p.m., my phone buzzed, a name I hadn't seen on the screen in weeks. "Grandma," I answered without thinking. "Grandma?" I said, but all I got was static. Then, a whisper, shaky, hoarse. "Help me!" The call cut off. Just like that, I stood frozen, not out of fear, but recognition. That wasn't a mistake. That wasn't a misdial. I called back, straight to voicemail. Again, nothing. I opened the weather app. Blizzard warning. Roads iced. Avoid travel unless absolutely necessary. I sat down, closed my eyes, thought, maybe I misheard, but I knew better. 5 minutes later, I was throwing my snow boots on, stuffing clothes into a bag without checking sizes. I left my toothbrush on the counter, grabbed my coat, a thermos, the spare phone charger. That was it. Right before I locked the door, I turned back, opened the glove box of my car. Inside was an old peppermint tin, the kind Grandma used to hand out every Christmas. This one had a yellowed note folded into it. "Even when no one sees you, I do." I sat there for a second longer than I meant to, holding it like it was alive. Then I started the engine. There was nothing left to think through. The blizzard had already begun. The first few miles were fine. The roads glistened, not quite buried yet. But once I left the city, it was like driving through a paperweight, snow swirling all around me, disorienting. The car's tires shifted, skidding slightly at each stop sign. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my fingers went numb. I kept driving. I thought about Christmas 3 years ago. They forgot I was coming. Again. June said the turkey had already been carved. Troy shrugged. My mother handed me a paper plate. Grandma had been the only one who noticed I hadn't eaten. She made me tea in the kitchen while everyone else watched a Hallmark movie. Back on the road, a car spun across the divider in front of me. I slammed the brakes. My car slid but stopped short of impact. I could have turned around then, maybe should have, but there's a moment, not loud, not dramatic, where your body just decides, if I don't go now, I won't forgive myself later. I passed the Welcome to Iron River sign at 3:58 a.m. The town looked exactly like I remembered, quiet, old, lit like a postcard. But as I turned onto Maple Drive, I felt it. Something off. The Hendersons had their Christmas lights on, so did the Patels. Even old Mr. Knowles had managed to get a reindeer on his lawn. But our house? Dark. Except the basement, the top floor, where Grandma slept, was pitch black. The basement windows glowed gold, shadows moving behind the curtains. I pulled into the driveway. Dad's car was gone. June's was here. So was Troy's. I turned the key. Engine ticking. My hands shook, not from the cold. I stepped out. Wind bit through my jacket. I walked up the path. Snow crunched beneath me. At the front door, I stood for a second longer than I needed to. Then I reached up and rang the bell. I pressed the doorbell once. Then again, no answer. From the porch, I could hear music, something tinny, overplayed, too cheerful. A burst of laughter broke through the glass window near the bottom of the door. It was muffled, but real. The house was awake. Just not for me. I pulled the old key from my pocket. Still fit, still turned clean. No alarm beeped. No lights flickered in greeting. No welcome mat. Not even the dog barked. And that mutt barked at squirrels. The front room looked staged but untouched. The couch had no indent. The mantel had no stockings. The tree? There wasn't one. Just a blank space where it used to stand. My boots left wet prints on the hardwood. I paused in the hallway, listening. Voices. Music. Forks clinking. It was coming from the basement. I stood there for a second longer than I should have, then whispered to no one, "It's like I'm breaking into my own childhood." I moved toward the basement door, cracking it open just enough to hear clearer. June's laugh came first, then Mom's voice, cheery, high-pitched, the one she reserved for outsiders. They were all down there, alive, thriving, and no one had called me. I descended one step at a time, like I wasn't sure if I was allowed, like I was trespassing in a memory that didn't want me back. The basement looked like a party store exploded. Plaid tablecloths, Christmas cookies, paper crowns on heads. Troy was there, plate full, chewing without care. A couple of neighbors I didn't recognize sat at the edge of the room, wine in hand. They saw me. No one blinked. June looked up from her phone. "Oh," she said, "I thought you were busy." She smiled, but it was the kind of smile you use when someone walks in on you doing something you don't want explained. There was no chair set for me, no plate, not even a half-hearted, "Sit down." I didn't sit, just hovered at the edge of it all, like an unpaid server at someone else's wedding. It was loud, too loud. The kind of forced joy that makes you want to step outside just to hear your own thoughts again. Troy gave me a half nod, then went back to chewing. A neighbor leaned in, trying to be friendly. "Didn't think you were coming this year." I didn't answer, just looked at the TV. A slideshow played, photos of everyone decorating, opening gifts, even sledding in the backyard. I wasn't in a single frame, and neither was Grandma. I asked, "Where's Grandma?" There was a silence. That kind of beat that happens when everyone waits for someone else to lie first. "She's resting upstairs," Mom said quickly, already halfway through her next bite. I stood there listening. The music, the forks, the small talk. It all continued. I turned without another word and walked upstairs. The steps creaked. My heartbeat was louder than my footsteps. Grandma's door was at the end of the hall. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again. Still nothing. I tried the handle. Locked. From the outside, I stared at it for a full 5 seconds. Locked. From the outside, I could hear shuffling inside, barely, but no voice. I turned slowly and walked back down, gripping the railing. Nobody had come to check. Nobody asked. Back in the basement, laughter continued like nothing was wrong. June caught my eye. She raised her glass like a toast. I didn't respond. "Everything okay?" Mom asked, glancing over her shoulder. I smiled, one of those smiles you give when you've already made the decision not to cry anymore. "Of course," I said. Inside, I thought, I was invited to the memory of the girl they preferred I had never become. I didn't take a seat. I found the bench by the entryway, sat there alone, watching. My niece opened a gift, sparkly gloves. She leaned into her mom and whispered something, then turned toward me. "Aunt Evie," she asked, "why didn't you get a present?" No one answered. Mom handed me a napkin. "We didn't know if you'd be here." I nodded. No reaction, just folded the napkin once. Then again. The fire crackled. Warm, but not for me. I didn't feel it. Couldn't. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out the peppermint tin, held it like a compass in a storm. They didn't notice. Of course not. I came to save someone, I thought, as I traced the edge of the tin with my thumb. I didn't know it'd be me. Morning came, but the house didn't wake with it. I stirred on the edge of the living room couch, too stiff to pretend I'd slept. The lights from last night still glowed under the basement door. Someone had left the fake fireplace on. It hummed low, a loop of digital flame flickering for no one. I sat up. My back cracked. I listened. Nothing. No clatter from the kitchen. No heels on hardwood. Just silence that didn't feel like peace. It felt like omission. I climbed the stairs quietly. The floorboards were colder up there, like the warmth never reached past the first landing. As I passed Troy's old room, the door creaked open by itself, nothing inside but holiday storage and dust. Grandma's door was at the very end of the hall. I knocked softly. No answer. But then, a shuffle. Barely there. The kind of sound that only meant someone too weak or too quiet to say anything louder. I tried the knob. It wouldn't turn. The latch had been slid from the outside. I looked down. A small wooden wedge, intentionally jammed. Every room in that hallway was unlocked, except this one. My fingers shook as I called out again. "Grandma?" A faint cough answered me. I stepped back, stared at the lock, then at the wedge. She was inside, and someone had locked her in. I walked back down the stairs, slow, calculated, like I didn't want to wake the wrong beast. June was at the kitchen counter, flipping through her phone like it owed her money. Mom poured coffee, humming something off key. I didn't wait for a moment. I made one. "Why is Grandma's door locked?" June didn't look up. "She wanders at night. Last week she nearly fell down the stairs." Mom added quickly, "We're doing it for her safety, Evelyn." On Christmas morning, June finally met my eyes. "We were going to check on her after breakfast." I didn't respond. I let the weight of that sentence hang in the air between us. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. This wasn't care. This was control. And they were justifying it with the ease of someone who'd rehearsed the excuse long before the action. I turned and walked to the guest bathroom, needing air I could close a door around. There, in the sink, was Grandma's peppermint bracelet, the one she wore every December since I was 10. It was broken. A few of the red and white beads had slipped into the drain, clinging to the rim like they didn't want to go. The elastic snapped. Or someone snapped it. I picked it up slowly. It was wet. Cold. The smell of hand soap didn't cover the sting of what I saw. I wrapped the remains in a tissue, tucked them in my coat pocket next to the tin. If they were trying to erase her, they were doing a damn good job. Back in the living room, the slideshow still played. More photos, all smiles, all someone else's memories. June in the garden, Troy at the grill, Mom and the neighbor's baby. Not a single one of me, not a single one of Grandma. I sat down on the edge of the rug, where the floor dipped slightly. My niece came over with a juice box, looked at the screen, then looked at me. "Why aren't you in the pictures, Aunt Evie?" I shrugged. "Maybe they forgot me." She squinted. "But you live here too, right?" I didn't answer. Because that wasn't her burden to untangle. That was mine. I stood up, walked back to the stairs, stopped halfway and looked up again. She was still behind that door. Probably cold. Definitely alone. June was watching me now, pretending not to. But I saw the way her fingers paused over her phone. Waiting. Calculating. She knew. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw a fit. I pulled out my phone. I hit record. "She's locked in here," I said softly. "It's Christmas Eve, and they're pretending nothing's wrong." I stared at the door, placed my hand flat against the wood. "Don't worry, Grandma," I whispered. "I'm still here." I waited until the hallway was clear. Mom's voice floated from the kitchen downstairs, arguing with the coffee pot like it was sentient. June was still pretending to care about seating cards or side dishes. No one noticed me slip back up the stairs. The latch clicked beneath my fingers. Quiet? Intentional. The door creaked open. I stepped in. The air smelled like closed-off heat, like someone had lived too long in stillness. Grandma was sitting on the bed, propped against too many pillows. Her robe looked heavy on her, swallowing her frame. She blinked when she saw me. "Evie?" I nodded, stepping closer, wrapping my coat around her shoulders. She felt cold, even with all the blankets. A plastic cup of water sat empty on the nightstand. "Why'd they close the door?" she asked. I didn't answer. I didn't lie either. A stool had been wedged under the knob from the outside. No way that happened by accident. I helped her swing her legs around. Her feet touched the floor with a shaky kind of certainty. She gripped my hand, her voice a rasp. They laughed when you didn't come. I stopped breathing for a second. Then I squeezed her hand back like it might hold her here. After a while, I helped her to the armchair near the window. She closed her eyes and leaned into the morning light. I made sure the door didn't close behind me as I stepped back into the hall. Downstairs again, I moved quietly toward the hallway closet. Tucked behind cleaning supplies and a sad-looking Christmas wreath was the security cabinet. A monitor hummed inside, small screen, live feed, a few buttons labeled with dusty tape. I scrolled through yesterday's footage, and there it was, June, at the top of the stairs, latching Grandma's door shut, wedge in hand. Mom walked by behind her. Didn't stop, just nodded. 3 minutes later, wine corks popped in the basement, decorations, lights, music, laughter, like nothing happened. I pressed record on my phone, capturing the footage as it played back. June smiling while twisting the lock, Mom pouring wine, no hesitation, just holiday cheer. My hands didn't shake from the cold. They shook from the clarity. I whispered, I didn't imagine this. They really meant to erase me. I backed out, closed the cabinet. It clicked shut like a final judgment. Not anymore, I said to no one. They were already at the table when I returned. The smell of cinnamon rolls filled the air. Coffee, orange juice, conversations about nothing. I walked in. No one looked up. I placed the broken peppermint bracelet right in the middle of the table. June froze. Her fork paused in midair. Mom sipped coffee, eyes down, like always. No one mentioned Grandma. No one asked where I'd been. I didn't sit. I didn't touch the food. I watched them pass platters around me, weaving conversation like a net, trying to pretend it hadn't already split. I'll get more coffee, I said, even though my cup was full. They nodded. In the hallway, I started collecting. Receipts tucked into drawers, tags from gifts, a party timeline scrawled on a whiteboard in the mudroom, and on the back of the pantry door, a list. Christmas priorities. My name, crossed off in red marker. Underneath, focus on peace, no drama. I took a picture. They always told me I was too sensitive, I thought. Too emotional. But maybe I just paid attention longer than they were comfortable with. Every file, every shot, saved into a folder on my phone. I renamed it, Truth. Upstairs, I brought Grandma a plate. Eggs, toast, fruit. She smiled, soft. Did you find your spot at the table, baby? I kissed her forehead. Not yet, but I'm about to make one. I cracked the window just enough to let the cold in, felt like breathing. I sat on the floor near her and opened my phone, trimmed the video, added subtitles, compressed the file. Sent it to 3 people, an elder care advocate, a retired attorney, and Edith, our neighbor, the one who always waved when no one else did. Grandma dozed in the chair. I leaned in close. They won't laugh when I'm done. They were already halfway through brunch by the time I stepped back into the dining room. The scent of cinnamon and sausage hung thick in the air, warm and oddly sweet, like the fake kindness they'd been serving since I arrived. Laughter filled the room, but it didn't reach me. Nothing did. Plates clinked. Juice poured. Someone asked who brought the cranberry muffins. June raised her hand like she deserved applause. I stood there for a second too long. No one asked why I wasn't there earlier. No one noticed I'd been gone. I glanced over at the chalkboard in the kitchen. It had Christmas brunch written in gold marker, with little snowflakes doodled around it. Underneath was a seating chart. My name wasn't on it. June must have caught my glance. We didn't think you'd come home this year, she said with a smile that was somehow both soft and smug. It's been a while. I walked toward the table. The only seat left was by the garbage can. I sat. You can be surrounded by people, I thought, and still be the only one not there. Across the room, my niece giggled. The TV was playing something from her phone. A TikTok, cheerful music, a montage of family moments. There they were, June dancing with her husband, Troy helping their mom hang ornaments, kids running around the tree, pans clanking in the kitchen. No Grandma, no me. The video ended with the words, "Best Christmas yet. Had family first." I stood up. left the table, didn't speak. I stepped into the hallway, back flat against the wall like I needed something solid to hold me upright. They were showing this video to cousins, neighbors, people from church. This wasn't forgetfulness. It was a curated absence. I turned to go back, but my niece was already beside me. She tugged my sleeve, her eyes wide. "Why weren't you in the video, Aunt Evie?" I opened my mouth, closed it. "Because I was still driving here, sweetheart." She tilted her head. "Why didn't they wait for you?" I crouched down, looked her in the eye. "Sometimes," I said, "people don't wait, even when they know you're coming." She wrapped her arms around my neck. That small hug landed harder than any slap I'd ever taken. I was never supposed to be part of their highlight reel, I thought. That's the point. Later, I passed the den. June's laptop was open on the side table. I glanced at the screen. A Word doc titled Holiday Plans. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. Table assignments, food contributions, gift pairings. My name was there, once. Evelyn? Undecided, it said, crossed out in red. Next to it, not worth planning around, may cause drama. I didn't flinch, just hit print screen. I scrolled further, found a note. Get shots of kids near tree. No Evelyn in background. I exhaled through my nose. Not a surprise, just confirmation. Later, I sat on the floor just outside Grandma's room. Wrapped in a throw blanket, cup of lukewarm coffee in hand, I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was numb. Outside the window, snow drifted in lazy spirals. The world looked peaceful. It wasn't. I texted everything, slideshow, screenshots, video link, to Rachel, my contact at Elder Care Services. Proof of neglect, I wrote, and intent. I stared at the message for a second, then hit send. Grandma stirred behind the door. A minute passed, then her voice, soft and small. "Did they let you in this year?" I sipped my coffee. Set it down. "They didn't have to," I said. I stood up, brushing crumbs off my jeans. I came in anyway. The house got louder around noon. Dishes clattered. Someone laughed too hard at something that wasn't funny. The kind of noise people make when they're trying to cover a crack that's spreading. I didn't speak to anyone. I kept to the corners, like a shadow learning how to move unnoticed. That hallway upstairs had a door I hadn't opened in years. It used to be Grandpa's office. After he passed, June started calling it her creative space. I waited until she stepped outside to take a call, then slipped in. It still smelled faintly of old paper and lemon oil. The desk was cluttered, but not locked. I checked drawers, nothing damning. Then I found a metal file box tucked behind a stack of fake floral arrangements. Key was taped underneath. Inside, a manila folder labeled Iwan Corinne, Med Legal. I sat cross-legged on the floor and opened it. The first page was a medical summary. Routine. Blood pressure, cholesterol, joint pain. Then came the power of attorney document. Assigned 3 months ago. I scanned the date again. Grandma had been in the hospital that week. No one mentioned signing legal papers. The signatures didn't match her old ones. They looked tight, jagged, like someone was copying, not signing. And June's name was on every other line. I felt my pulse in my ears, but my hands didn't shake. I took photos of every page, front and back, captured the notary stamp, the paper's corner creases. Every detail mattered now. I didn't come here to destroy them, I thought, but they've been destroying her in silence for a long time. I slipped everything into my coat. Back in my room, I pulled out Grandma's old tablet, cracked screen, slow to start, but I remembered the password, Peppers 1940. Once inside, I opened her banking app. The interface was clunky, but the trail was clear. Monthly payments, luxury subscription boxes, interior design services, all tied to a debit card I didn't recognize, until I Googled the address listed. June's office. Same billing, same ship to. I screenshotted it all. Saved every PDF. Dates aligned perfectly with the time Grandma was too tired to open mail. It's theft, I whispered to myself, disguised as caretaking. I leaned back against the bed. They called me dramatic, I thought, But this is what silence breeds. The peppermint tin sat on the nightstand. I opened it slowly. Inside, I tucked in the printed records, the receipts, a small flash drive, then the broken bracelet. Last came the memory stick I labeled insurance records. I closed the lid. Grandma once told me, the quiet ones are always the most dangerous, if you give them a reason. That stuck. I started a folder on my laptop. Christmas, evidence, final. The final document I created was titled, She Deserved Better. By the time I zipped up the files, the house had settled into an uneasy lull again. I made my way to the garage. It had always been off limits. June called it seasonal storage. I figured it was more than wreaths and fake snow. It was boxes stacked high, labels handwritten, one marked taxes, medical. Inside, a mess. Donation receipts under Grandma's name, dated this fall. Hundreds of dollars to causes she didn't even talk about. And a church Christmas card, still sealed, postmarked 2 weeks ago. The same week, Mom told everyone Grandma had politely declined to join the holiday service due to her memory slipping. They didn't just forget her. They erased her in advance. I stood in the cold garage, envelope in hand, and felt something shift in my chest. Not rage, certainty. Later, upstairs, I sat with my laptop again, compiled the documents, named every file clearly, date, subject, source. Wrote a short email to Mr. Larkin, Grandma's attorney before June fired him. Subject, request for verification. I'm not asking you to fight for her, I wrote. I'm asking you to confirm she ever had a choice. I attached everything. Then I pulled out a second USB, copied the folder over, and placed it in a small envelope. Wrote on it, for Grandma, for the record. I tucked it into the inside pocket of her coat, zipped it gently, and stepped back. They'll never know the moment the balance shifted, I whispered. But it already has. Mom handed me a trash bag like she was offering me a gold medal. Could you take this out real quick before dinner? I nodded. Didn't say a word. Just took the bag, wrapped my coat tighter around me, and stepped out the back door. Snow was still falling. Softer now. Slower. The kind of snow that muffled everything. I walked toward the bin by the side of the garage, tossed the bag in, and turned back. That's when I saw it. Through the living room window, slightly fogged, framed by red tinsel, I saw them posing. June's phone propped on a tiny tripod, flash on. Everyone gathered around the fireplace, smiling. Matching flannel pajamas. The countdown blinked red. 3, 2, 1. The camera snapped. I stood there outside, wind biting my fingers. No gloves, no spot in the photo, just me and the cold. You don't forget someone, I thought. You remove them. I stepped back inside through the laundry room, brushed snow from my sleeves, and hung up my coat. As I moved to the hallway, I heard them talking upstairs. The vent carried every word like a confession. She still thinks she can fix this family, June said, her voice sharper than usual. She always was the soft one, Troy chuckled. Soft doesn't survive around here. I pressed record on my phone. I didn't need revenge. I needed receipts. This isn't bitterness, I told myself. This is evidence. Downstairs, dinner was being served. Ham, green beans, mashed potatoes, rolls, the usual suspects. I took my seat beside Grandma and helped her with her plate. Small bites, soft bread. She chewed slow, blinked even slower. June raised her glass. It's been a tough year. Taking care of Grandma hasn't been easy, but family steps up. Mom smiled like she'd been rehearsing. Troy nodded like he didn't care. I wiped the corner of Grandma's mouth gently. No one looked. I didn't interrupt, just let them lie. The audio recorder stayed on in my coat pocket. Sometimes the sharpest cut comes from not denying the blade. After a few more bites, I leaned over to Grandma. Let's get you ready for bed, she nodded. We left the table without a word. Upstairs, I guided her into her room, helped her change into flannel pajamas, tucked the blankets under her legs. She dozed off almost instantly. I pulled out my laptop, labeled audio clips, dates, voices, quotes. The clip of June mocking Grandma, the TikTok that never showed me, the slideshow where we both didn't exist. I uploaded them all, sent the audio to the elder abuse hotline, anonymously, forwarded a zipped file to my attorney contact. Subject line, building the timeline. No fanfare, no threat, just truth. They're counting on me cracking, I typed into my notes app. What they didn't count on was that I'd prepare first. I sat back, watching snow stack higher on the windowsill. The door creaked behind me. Grandma stirred. "They think you're the weak one," she said. Her voice was dry but steady. "But I know where the steel is." I smiled. "You always did." We sat like that for a while. No words, no movement. I opened my laptop again, clicked into the folder titled Day 7, Deployment. "I wasn't going to burn it all down," I whispered. "I was going to freeze them out." The dining room was already full when I walked in. Plates clinked, napkins unfolded, roast ham and mashed potatoes steaming in the center of the table like nothing in this house had ever been wrong. The seat they left open for me, again, was by the trash bin. I didn't take it. Instead, I slid into the chair next to Grandma, draped a cloth napkin across her lap. She looked at me. No words. Just understanding. June raised her glass. "Let's take a second to thank everyone who helped make this holiday peaceful." Peaceful. I picked up my glass. Didn't drink. My phone buzzed gently in my coat pocket. The email had already been sent. Scheduled. Precise. They were praying I'd keep the peace, I thought. I chose to hand it over instead. The TV on the hutch had been muted earlier, replaying the same fake fireplace loop as always. But then it clicked on, loud. The first frame was grainy, surveillance style. June, at the top of the stairs, locking Grandma's door. Next clip, slideshow. The same one from earlier, only now it paused every few frames, highlighting absence, Grandma missing, me missing, and then the audio. June's voice from the hallway vent, mocking Grandma's mind, Troy chuckling beside her. "She still thinks she can fix this family. Soft doesn't survive around here." The room fell into a vacuum. Fork dropped. Troy's mouth hung half open. June turned to me, face white but still pretending. Mom leaned forward. "Turn it off." A different voice cut through. "No," Edith said from the doorway. "Let it play." She stepped into the room slowly, wore her church coat, still had her boots on. "I've lived next door for 32 years, she said, "and I've seen more than enough." No one moved, no one breathed. "I've seen what you've done to that woman upstairs," she pointed to Grandma, "and I've watched you lie about it, smile through it, toast over it." Then her eyes landed on me. "You came when no one else did. And they don't deserve to share your blood." A cousin stood and walked out. One of the younger ones whispered, "What's happening?" Parents shuffled the kids out. June tried to force a laugh. "This is being blown way out of context." Edith turned. "No, June, this is the context." Silence again. Then Troy cleared his throat. "I told you this would come back to bite us." June spun toward him. "You think I wanted to be stuck with her? You think any of you stepped up when it counted?" Mom muttered, "We were just trying to keep things under control." I looked at her. "You weren't keeping peace," I said. "You were erasing people." My voice wasn't loud, but it cut. Grandma reached for my hand, squeezed it. "Let them unravel," she whispered. They already were. The table looked like a crime scene dressed in cranberry sauce and broken illusions. I opened my coat, pulled out an envelope. Thick. Sealed. "Here's the legal backup," I said. "I've sent it to 3 others already." I stood, kissed Grandma's cheek. "Dinner's over." I turned to walk out. An aunt called after me. "You'll regret this." I stopped. "You mean I'll regret not letting you continue?" I didn't wait for a response. My final glance wasn't at any of them. It was at Grandma. Her eyes were soft, but not weak. "We're going home now," I said. I helped Grandma into her coat slowly, threading her arms through one sleeve at a time. The fabric was thick and soft, a gift I'd given her years ago, still hanging in the hall closet like no one had touched it since. She reached for her scarf, and I looped it gently around her neck, tugging once to tighten it. Not too much. Just enough. We made our way down the stairs, her steps careful but steady. The living room was dim, plates half empty, wine glasses sweating. Most of the family had disappeared into their corners. The ones left avoided eye contact, pretending like their food was more important than the woman being helped out the front door. No one offered to carry anything. Mom opened her mouth like she might say something, but nothing came out. June watched but didn't stop us, didn't argue, didn't flinch. When they don't stop you from leaving, that's when you know you were never really allowed to stay. I opened the front door. The cold met us quick, but it felt clean. Grandma leaned on me, and together we walked to the car. I helped her in, buckled her seatbelt like I used to buckle my baby cousin's back in the day. Careful, gentle, like that kind of care was rare. The roads were still covered in snow. The plows hadn't made it down this stretch yet, but I drove slow, steady. Grandma fell asleep not 10 minutes into the ride. Her breath fogged the window slightly. I glanced over at her, then back at the road. The Christmas lights blurred past, blinking like tired eyes. So many years I'd tried to earn a seat at a table that was never meant for me. So many nights wondering what I'd done wrong to be forgotten, then realizing they remembered me just fine. They just didn't want me, Grandma murmured, half asleep. Thank you for coming home, I smiled. I didn't come home, I whispered. I came for you. The GPS blinked ahead, 20 minutes to the Airbnb. I'd booked it a week ago, just in case. Just in case everything went exactly how I knew it would. The room was already warm when we arrived. I turned up the heater another notch, made sure the bed was firm but soft enough for her hips, brought in our overnight bags. Grandma settled into bed like she belonged there, and maybe for the first time in a long while, she did. I unzipped my bag, pulled out the peppermint tin, set it on the nightstand. Inside, the broken bracelet, the USB, the screenshots, and a note, folded so many times the edges had gone soft. She spotted it. You still kept that? She asked, voice quiet. It was never just candy, I said. It was the only time I felt chosen. She didn't speak again, just looked at it. A long, slow look like it held every year we'd lost between us. I sat beside her until her breathing slowed. My phone buzzed. A message from June. You had no right to air our family like that. Then another. Mom, you humiliated us. Merry Christmas. I didn't respond. Instead, I took a photo of Grandma, asleep, peaceful, the tin next to her hand. I sent it to both. Captioned, she's warm, she's not alone, that's all that matters. Then I blocked them both. Quietly, permanently. No announcement, no warning. I stepped outside for air. Snow was still falling, stacking over the car, the steps, the railing, like the world was trying to cover the ugly with a blanket. I held a cup of hot tea, fingers warming around it. I wasn't victorious, but I was free. Grandma called me inside. Let's start a new tradition, she said. I smiled, stepping back through the door. First rule, I asked. No one gets left behind. They made me feel like a guest in my own story. I've written a new one. And this time, when someone whispered, "Help me," I answered and stayed. Hi, I'm Evelyn. On Christmas night, my grandma whispered, "Help me," over the phone. Then the line went dead. I drove 6 hours through a snowstorm to get to her. When I arrived, the house was lit, music playing, laughter from the basement. But Grandma? She was locked upstairs, alone. My name wasn't on the seating chart. They'd deleted me from the family slideshow. And when I saw what was written about me on my sister's laptop, I stopped trying to be part of their peace. I started building my own war. But what I uncovered next wasn't just betrayal. It was a plan to make sure I disappeared. Want to know how I turned their Christmas dinner into the quietest fallout you've ever seen? Keep watching.